This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
And welcome everyone to the Mac and Jack and Doc Saturday morning debate show. Hopefully Jamie Pags pops in at some point. 2 hours of great sports talk, great sports debate, and a whole lot of fun among friends. So, Jack and Mac, how you guys doing today?
Good. Thanks for starting this show, because Mac was ribbing me before the show, so I'm relieved to get this started now, so I don't have to hear him backstage.
No. I'm doing well, Doc. Thanks for asking, buddy.
That's a good thing. Mac's got a secret book project that he just started working on. Jack's getting ready to get back up into the New York area soon from Florida. So things are really starting to come around, and baseball's in full swing. We've got lots of hockey and basketball playoffs in this area. So lots and lots of good stuff. But let's get to the start. We're not going to talk about any of the playoffs or the start of the season. We're going to take a step back in history. And Jack brought this up a couple of weeks ago as a bigger thought. And now we're going to have a chance to debate the question. In 1941, Joe DiMaggio hit in 56 straight games. It was an amazing accomplishment. It captured the minds and the hearts of the entire country. Les Brown and his orchestra made a song called Joltin' Joe DiMaggio. And that's really been remembered always as one of baseball's great numbers, Joe DiMaggio's 56-game hitting streak. It propelled him to actually win the MVP that year, even though at the end of the year, Ted Williams had a higher batting average at 406, the last guy ever to hit 400. But in retrospect, DiMaggio did get a hit in 56 games, but Ted Williams actually went through a period where he got on base in 84 straight games. So the question really is, what's the more impressive streak? DiMaggio hitting for 56 games or Ted Williams getting on base for 84? What do you think?
Well, guys, I hate revisionist thinking, and that's what we're doing right now. Revisionist thinking is only good if it could help you at the present time and going forward. But here we are, having a little revisionist thinking, and I like it a lot because we're living in an age now of analytics. What would someone think of the streaks right now? Let's be honest about it. Joe DiMaggio was under a lot of pressure. The longer the streak was going, everyone was paying attention to the streak. It became more than baseball news. It was nationwide news. Can Joltin' Joe keep it going? He got a hit again. It would catch on like wildfire. Ted Williams' 84-game on-base streak, no one's even noticing until now. I just recently noticed it. I never paid attention to it. If you asked me not long ago who has the greatest on-base percentage in the longest on-base streak in history, I would go, duh. I would maybe guess Joe DiMaggio because I wouldn't know the answer. But now I know it's Ted Williams' 84 games. Compare 84 games to Joe DiMaggio's 56-game hitting streak. But in fairness to Joltin' Joe, he broke the record, I think, before Williams. He did something like 74 games, But what is more impressive? That's the answer. What is more impressive? And there are intangibles involved, guys. Let's say you get on base because a pitcher throws 4 bad pitches and he walks you. I mean, and you don't have to show much of a batting eye, and you get on base, you keep it going that way. I was going to say Ted Williams' 84-game streak. I'm going to say Joe DiMaggio's 56-game hitting streak because for the most part, you have to earn every hit for the most part, even though we had a game yesterday with the Chicago Cubs. Drew Smyly, the Cub pitcher, has a perfect game going in the 8th inning. And the batter hits a little squibbler. He's about to pick it up, and his catcher runs into him, and he loses the perfect game in the 8th inning. So you never know. That's an intangible you talk about. I mean, who knows? But I'm going to say Joe DiMaggio's 56-game hitting streak because of the pressure he was under day in, day out. He had the whole country looking at him, whereas Ted Williams quietly accumulated the 84 game streak. What do you guys think?
Well, I mean, I have to agree with you. I think Joe DiMaggio's 56 game hitting streak is more impressive. When you walk, you don't drive in runs. You don't. I mean, if you walk, do you even score? That's a question too. You know that Joe DiMaggio hitting those games, he drove in runs, he scored. He was at least on base 56 times in a row too. So he had at least 56 times that he was on base, 56 times he got a hit, and he drove in runs. So if you put them all together, Joe DiMaggio, to me, his record is more impressive than 84 walks. Forget analytics. I'm tired of analytics. You know, it's production. And Joe DiMaggio had more production that year, in my opinion, than Ted Williams.
Mac, you remind me of my little league coach, one of them who I didn't really get along with. I get up 4 times.
Oh, we're getting heated here already. 6 minutes in, I didn't get along with my coach. You remind me of him. This could be trouble.
I strike out, ground out, but get 2 walks. Oh, what a bad game. You didn't get a hit, Hirsch. Back to the bench.
That's
okay,
right.
Come on,
Exactly
Mac. Walks don't minimize walks. Walks are very important. Don't say you don't score with walks. You don't. Just a walk could be as good as a hit, depending on the situation.
Could be. That's the key phrase. Could be is, listen, if you played like that, you would never gotten a starting lineup with me.
Interesting. Jack put to the bench because he's walking too much. You know, there was the old adage, a walk is as good as a hit. I think in the baseball story, the idea of Joe DiMaggio's 56 game hitting streak will always be the more notable achievement. He hit in 56 straight games. The Yankees also won the World Series, if I'm not mistaken, in 1941. I don't know what year or years that Ted Williams' streak lasted. I know Aaron Judge had just had a streak that was broken, and his streak had dated obviously back to last year. So sometimes these hitting streaks, they transverse one year to the next. But you know, I'm editing a book about baseball that's going to come out in the fall. That's talking about the 100 most influential players in baseball history, not just the best. And one of those players in the book is Bert Blyleven, who analytics, he's really like one of the poster childs of analytics. When Bert Blyleven pitched, nobody thought that Bert Blyleven was a Hall of Famer. Now, it's interesting when you talk to Roy White and you ask him who was the toughest pitcher he ever faced, and he faced a lot of great pitchers, Jim Palmer, Catfish Hunter, Nolan Ryan. I mean, you just think about all the great pitchers he faced over the course of his career. He says the toughest guy ever faced was Bert Blyleven. But that being the case, Blyleven was never considered a Hall of Famer until people started looking deeper at the statistics and the fact that it wasn't just wins and losses. It was how well he pitched, and he did win 283 games, but he was also on terrible teams. And when people look at it otherwise, they go, you know what, this guy was actually a really good pitcher. And that was a big debate probably about 15, 20 years ago. Does he deserve to be in the Hall of Fame? And eventually the statistics crowd won out. Roy White, again, another guy who walked a lot, got on base a lot, did a lot of the little things, and his career was underrated because some of those things weren't looked at as well. Williams's streak was 28 games longer than DiMaggio's. That's about a month. That's about a month of getting on base every single game more than DiMaggio. So I think while DiMaggio has the more iconic streak, and DiMaggio, and I think you both make a great point, when you get hits, you're driving in runs. When DiMaggio did it, he was the focus of the nation. He was leading a team that was going on to win the World Series. And when Ted Williams did it, it wasn't even noted. It wasn't even noticed. I mean, I would have to wonder what the newspapers, if any, even covered that. In fact, you're giving me an idea for an article. I wonder if a newspaper even noted the fact that he had reached base in his 84th consecutive game. And if on the next day, they made a big deal about the fact that Ted Williams' big streak ended. I don't think so, because, you know, all three of us are students of the game. We've all studied baseball and read about baseball and studied baseball our whole lives. And if you had asked me who got on base the most games in a row, I would have guessed Ted Williams, only because I knew he walked a lot and I knew that he was a great hitter. but I would have never known that he got on base in 84 straight games if Jack hadn't illuminated me to that fact. So I think DiMaggio is the more iconic streak. I think Williams, though, in the end was more impressive because he did it for almost a month longer than DiMaggio.
Can I throw this at you guys? Let's say Ted Williams' streak had been the focus of all of America the way Joe DiMaggio's was. Maybe Ted Williams doesn't get to 84 games. He is then under enormous pressure, maybe swinging at pitches that he wouldn't, maybe pressing a little bit too much. Joe DiMaggio was under the microscope. He did it under the most possible pressure you could be put under, like day in, day out. And Ted Williams very quietly went about his business. Imagine no one paid attention to Joe D during his streak. I mean, maybe he doesn't get to 56 games. Maybe the pressure helped him bear down a little more. We're never going to know. But one thing I think is indisputable, when you talk about all sports, I mean, every sport, and the word streak comes up, far and away, Joe DiMaggio's streak is the model, for everything. We don't talk about who has the greatest streak, Cal Ripken or Joe DiMaggio's. Cal Ripken's may have been a great accomplishment. I'm not going to argue that if you're going to say that. But Joe DiMaggio has far and away the most famous streak in sports.
And DiMaggio, I'm sorry, Mac, but DiMaggio, after that 56-game hitting streak, went on another hitting streak afterwards.
Yeah.
And
16 games. 16 games.
And the game that he didn't get a hit, didn't get a hit only because he was robbed. Kenny Keltner, the third baseman on the Indians, made two great plays robbing DiMaggio of hits. And one of the knocks, and as a Yankee fan, I'm probably the biggest Ted Williams supporter of any Yankee fan anywhere because, as I've shared, that's my dad's favorite player. And my dad worships Ted Williams even today. So I grew up, learning all about Ted Williams and everything that he did. And he was one of the greats of all time, no doubt. But one of the knocks on Ted Williams was he wouldn't swing at bad pitches. He just refused to. And if the guy behind him in the batting order wasn't a great hitter, he would just pass the baton. If a pitch wasn't where he wanted it, he'd take it. And, the Red Sox media, the Boston media at the time would say, sometimes you got to swing at bad pitches to do what you need to do to help the team win. And he didn't do that kind of stuff. So,
well, one thing Ted Williams never figured out and never bluntly came out with a position on hitting against the shift. He kept shifting in his attitude. Well, maybe you should just try to beat the shift, hitting through it, hitting away from it. It seemed to befuddle him maybe just a little bit, in his attitude-wise. Obviously, he was a great hitter. He hit. And also, it's important to point out what Billy Martin would say about Ted Williams. He wasn't the biggest fan. He said Ted Williams was a great hitter, but not a great ball player. So in this day and age, Ted Williams, I think, would have been happy to be a DH, just have a bat in his hand, hit. He absolutely loved hitting.
Yeah, I agree with you. That was his thing.
But he wasn't, he wasn't noted as a defensive presence at all. Maybe he was even a liability out there. So when you call him a great ball player, is that fair? Can we call him a great hitter? Because
I think that's all Ted Williams ever wanted. In fact, I think that quote from the movie The Natural was based on Ted Williams. The idea of Roy Hobbs says, "I want to be remembered as the best that ever was." Ted Williams said, "I want to walk down the street and have people look at me and say that guy was the greatest hitter there ever was." That's all he wanted. That's what he was, a student of hitting.
Yeah. And, and if you look at the different dimensions of the parks, I mean, you think about, Joe DiMaggio could get a lot of hits because of the deepness of left center field. And Ted Williams, the short porch, but they don't talk about the short porch in Fenway down at Pesky Bowl as much as they talk about the short porch in Yankee Stadium, which gave him a lot of home runs. The Green Monster lifted up, you can get a home run over there or hit it off the wall and get a base hit, where that wouldn't be a base hit in Yankee Stadium. So there's a lot to think about when you're talking about, streaks and how they got there and the difference in hitting.
Guys, didn't they talk at one time? I don't know how close this became to being a reality, a trade, Joe D for Ted Williams. Wasn't that rumored at one time? Was that just newspaper talk or was that reality?
I'm not sure if it's apocryphal, if it's an old urban tale, but supposedly the Yankee GM and the Red Sox GM, probably was George Weiss for the Yankees, the Red Sox, or maybe it was Tom Yawkey, the owner, had made the trade on paper. Like they were out one night and they decided, let's do it. You know, you have Ted Williams, a left-handed hitter, have a chance to play in Yankee Stadium, which is more favorable to lefties. And DiMaggio, a right-handed hitter, would get a chance to play in Fenway Park, a stadium more suited to right-handed hitters, obviously. I wrote an article on this a couple of years ago. Maybe I should rerun it on Start Spreading the News. But, you know, the conventional wisdom is DiMaggio was the better ball player, as we're talking about that, and he was. But, and I think the idea was that trade was proposed somewhere around 1949. Most Yankee fans, I think, would say, you know what, I would have never traded DiMaggio for Williams. But I looked at the trade, and if the Yankees had made that trade, it would have been brilliant and fantastic and wonderful, and it would have benefited the Yankees. And not because Ted Williams was a much better player all around than DiMaggio. He wasn't. But because DiMaggio retired like 2 or 3 years later, if the trade was 47, it was 5 years later. And Williams played till 1960. And he was great throughout the 1950s. I mean, the Yankees would have benefited greatly by that.
Do you know how unhappy, a puzzled Joe DiMaggio would have been going to the Red Sox? As soon as he goes there, he'd be told, you can't play center field. We already have a center fielder, Dom DiMaggio.
Yeah, your brother.
We have an all-star center fielder. He's a great defensive. So we're moving you to right field or first base. Can you imagine they make him a first baseman as soon as he goes?
The Yankees tried that for about a week, and it didn't work.
That was Casey Stengel. Yeah, at the end. But that would have been really intriguing. And what was Joe going to say in that case? That's his brother. You know, so
he would have said, I'm the center fielder. I'm sure of that. He would have said, Dominic, you're my little brother. You're moving.
Yeah, I guess Dom would have moved the position. I mean, who knows how it would have played out between the brothers, would have discussed it, and they would have come. I guess they would have come to an understanding.
Back then, I don't think the players had to come to an understanding. The manager told you what to do, right? Like,
yeah.
But boy, I can't imagine Joe DiMaggio being happy about not being the center fielder. That's great stuff. All right, so let's move on. Great little history lessons there. Joe DiMaggio, Ted Williams, baseball in the 1940s and 30s and into the 50s and 60s. Now, here's the next question, and we're going to let Jack illuminate this after I ask the question a little bit to give a little bit more. But there was a situation with Russell Westbrook's interactions with fans. And considering how his interactions with fans have been, should the league admonish him or continue to ignore it? So, Jack, why don't you give us some background on that so we have a better sense? And by the way, hello to Rick, our good friend. Thanks for always tuning in. And sorry that the Dr. Sem show was pre-recorded, so we couldn't have any comments on that one today. But welcome to the show.
Yeah, good morning, Rick. This happened about a week and a half ago or thereabouts. The LA Clippers, who Russell Westbrook plays for, playing the Phoenix Suns. And there's a shortcut from the locker room out to the court, but you have to pass by a little lounge where a little bit of the public could be. Someone said something to Russell Westbrook. He stood up and he was a bit confrontational. He called the fan an MF, and then he went out to the court, that type of thing. I think it's a bigger question now, guys. You don't mind me tweaking the question. How far should fans be allowed to go? I'm going to speak for myself now. I never yell anything at a player, rarely boo. But potentially I would. If it's, let's say, an outfielder doesn't hustle for the ball, then he misses then he has a bad throw to the cutoff man, and the cutoff man then throws it to the wrong base. Stuff that a high school team should execute. And these big leaguers, and they have multiple mistakes on one play, I might boo. I might just quickly yell something out. I might say, but I don't curse anyway, but I might yell, you guys are ridiculous. You guys are a disgrace. Let's say I yell out, you guys are a disgrace, and the play would be a disgrace, let's say. Am I out of line? I mean, I don't think so. I was at a game when I was a little kid, Roger Maris's last game at the Yankees. I had the honor seeing Roger Maris hit a home run. Right before he hit the home runs, 1966, they were booing him savagely, the Yankee crowd. And I remember thinking as a little kid, how can you boo this guy? I mean, he broke Babe Ruth's record, and this is 5 years late. And then he hits a home run, and the boos turned into cheers. I remember they're all cheering, and I remember it wasn't a big crowd at Yankee Stadium. In those days, the stadium was dilapidated, and they were losing at those times. And Roy White could tell you about it, Doc, at the end of Roger Maris's time. He'd been with the team a couple of years, maybe where Roger had to go through. But how far should fans be allowed to go? Should they be allowed to do anything more than boo? I mean, that's the question involved. But the leagues aren't doing anything about the players. The players confront the fans like they were entitled. They could yell at. Are they allowed to yell back at the fans? Should there be a lid on something? And how far should fans be allowed to go? So in the case of Russell Westbrook, you confront a fan and you call him an MF. You shouldn't be allowed to get away with that with the league. Allegedly, the fan called Russell Westbrook Russell Westbrick. Now, we might chuckle and laugh. Brick means if you miss shots, it doesn't hit the rim, it hits the backboard. It's called a brick. Okay? So he is super sensitive to that. And I compare him to the school teacher who's called Baldy and goes crazy about it. If you just ignore it, it's going to go away. But when you respond to it, the kids are going to keep it up, keep it up, keep it up. I've seen it happen. I mean, and I was on the other end of it. I was called that, and I would laugh about it, and it stopped. But imagine I really got mad about it, it would continue. But these players, there's a feeling of entitlement now that everyone has to be quiet. They want it to be like the opera now. But with that said, fans should only be allowed to go so far. Now, let me ask you guys this. Players trash talk to one another, and they say a lot worse. Should that be stopped? Why is it okay for players to call other players names to get into their head, but if the fans do it, it's wrong?
All right, so you got a lot to unpack here. The players are the ones who are competing. The fans aren't competing. So the fans shouldn't have anything to do with that. And the fans, and I believe, and I'm almost certain every time I've been to a sporting event, every arena, they put a message on the scoreboard that, fans need to be civil. We don't accept profanity, yada, yada, yada. So if fans are out of line, the stadium personnel has the right. Other fans have the right to complain. And the stadium personnel, if they hear it, have the right, or if they get a complaint, have the right to tell that fan they have to stop or leave. Like you can't be yelling profanities. I mean, part of the thing about a ballpark and going to a game is there's going to be kids around. I mean, that's the whole thing, right? You bring your kid to the game. And if there's a fan saying inappropriate things or acting inappropriately, that fan should know that there's a standard of civil behavior that's expected in society and especially at a ball game, or maybe not especially, but at a ball game. So that shouldn't be tolerated. But a professional athlete, part of being a professional athlete is you have to not hear things. And if somebody calls Russell Westbrook Russell Westbrick, I mean, that's going to happen.
He says it's insulting his family's name. It's
my name is Semendinger, right? Like, come on. What did I grow up with my whole life? Right? Forever. And it's just what happens. People call people names based on their names. I mean, it's probably not right, but you're a professional athlete. You're a basketball player. A brick is a term. I remember the Knicks had a guy named Anthony Mason. What does a Mason do? They lay bricks. What did he do? He sometimes laid bricks. I mean, it fit, right? It's but you don't respond to a comment like you throw up a lot of bricks, or you're a lousy ball player, or your name is Russell Westbrick, which seems pretty much harmless as to my ear. By then calling somebody an MF. I mean, that's taking it from here to DEFCON 900 million. Yeah, Russell Westbrook should face disciplinary action for that. A player can't be calling a fan an MF. It's unacceptable. The fans need to behave a certain way too. But you sometimes you just got to hear the thing and just keep moving. And Jack, you were a school teacher. There are things you sometimes hear in schools that you close your ears to. Like it's not even worth responding to. I think we've all been in that situation in lots of different venues. I'm sure Mac faced it as a coach sometimes. You can't have rabbit ears and listen to everything everybody's saying. You have to be the grown up. He wasn't in that situation as you're describing it, and he should be suspended. Absolutely. You just can't do that, especially going back to my main point about kids being there. So here's the guy I'm rooting for, my big idol, Russell Westbrook. I'm going to try to do everything like he does. And then he's dropping the F-bomb. If I'm a kid hearing that, then maybe that little kid goes home and starts saying the word. Where'd you learn that? I learned it from Russell Westbrook.
I got to tell you something. I'm not going to say the school. I'm going to leave the college out, guys. I'm sorry, Mac, for cutting in. Yeah. But a friend of mine many, many years ago, he coached a college hockey team. I won't say which college. So I catch a game. I drive a fairly long distance. I catch it a game thinking, oh, what a refreshing thing, college sports. His players get on the ice. They are calling the referees, you blankety blank, 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 blank. Like I'm all shook up by, the language, how vulgar they were. These were hockey players on their college hockey players. And then I see my buddy right after, and I told him I couldn't believe it. And, he just shrugged. That's the way it is. And I think it was the culture of the college hockey. And for me to say to him something, well, you should put a stop to it, this and that. It's goody, and hypothetically, yes. But realistically, that was the culture of all of the college hockey going on then. And to tell them, oh, you have to be polite, you can't use profanity at any point, is like.
Nah, I disagree. That was unacceptable.
It was unacceptable, but it was part of the culture, and I was shocked that it was.
There you go. Rick brings up a good point about basketball being closer to the court where, the players can hear what you're saying and all that stuff, which makes sense. I don't make a lot of it, guys. Things have changed so much since we were kids. Heck, they used to wear suits and hats to baseball games. Right now, they don't do that anymore. How about fans on fans? They're fighting in they're fighting in the stadiums, and they're carrying on in front of kids, Doc, and the culture has changed. I mean, there's really nothing we can do about it sitting here debating this right now. I think it's something that's always going to happen. That probably always has happened. It's probably been going on forever. We just haven't seen it. We haven't seen it because of social media. I imagine days of Babe Ruth and Ted Williams and Joe DiMaggio, people were screaming at them and booing them too, and carrying on with them.
Right, but they weren't responding, and I believe Ted Williams once spit towards the fans and got in big trouble for that. Babe Ruth and Ty Cobb both went into the stands and went after hecklers and got in big trouble for that.
But it's been going on, Doc. It's not
right. But Roger Maris was booed. Jack brings that up a lot brought it up a lot earlier. He didn't go yelling at the fans. Mickey Mantle got booed for years. He didn't go yelling at the fans. I mean, Reggie Jackson got booed. There's a lot of, Hank Aaron received death threats and things like that. But the players also have a responsibility to behave in a certain manner, no?
I agree. And so do the fans. And to me, you could share the blame both ways. I mean, again, going on, it will be worse. It'll get worse as we go along. And if it can, I don't know what you can do about it. I know what they can do about it. Fan pays for the ticket. You can say, well, he doesn't give him a right to say anything, but does it? A player gets paid millions and millions of dollars to play the game of basketball. Should he be able to say a fan can get out? Of course not. I mean, there's just so much going on, and I don't know what they can do about it. I don't know if owners will do anything about it. I don't know if the league will do anything about it. I guess we'll see what's going to happen. I don't know.
Matt, but there are cases where a fan should be removed. LeBron James had a fan removed who said some terrible things about his kids. Terrible.
Sure.
Okay. that crossed the line. That fan should not only get removed from the game, should get banned for a period of time, maybe from attending a game.
And he's
I mean,
also
yeah.
also removed fans, Jack, that just have said hardly nothing to him because they bothered him. I mean, I've seen LeBron has been one of the worst at removing fans for almost anything. What the fan did there was wrong. But if you're just gonna boo him or say he's playing terrible or he's not the greatest of all time, he's had fans removed for stuff like that too.
And can I tell you something? We glorify someone like Spike Lee. Number one Knicks fan, he gets a seat on the court and he's heckling the opposing players, calling them every name, and he's getting them angered. Remember the way him and Reggie Miller went at it years ago. And he's kind of provoking, players. So fans do the same thing. Another fan who has less profile, what's really the difference?
Nothing.
All right, great points. All right, so let's continue the great discussion as we do. 30 minutes into the 2-hour program. That means we are 25% done, and we've only gotten to 2 questions. That's how great this discussion has been. Now, there was a situation with Draymond Green, and he stomped on somebody's chest. I didn't see the game. I don't know who the other player is, but Jack is here to explain that one to us too. Go, Jack.
Yeah. It's after Draymond Green got suspended. Sabonis on Sacramento went down, grabbed Draymond Green's leg, I guess, to support himself. Draymond Green didn't appreciate it, so he stomped on his chest kind of hard. Draymond Green got kicked out of that game, and the NBA suspended Draymond Green.
Well, Jack, before you continue there, that's not right. Sabonis was holding Green so he couldn't get down the court. He wasn't trying to support himself. He actually grabbed the leg to stop him from continuing to run down court to play defense, and that's what got Draymond Green so mad.
Okay, good correction there, Max. Thanks on that. But so Draymond Green, though, stomped on his chest quickly, kind of the way Christian Laettner did a lot of years ago in the big game with Duke against Kentucky, and they didn't kick Laettner out of that game. And then Duke, as a result, won a game on a big shot by Laettner, one of the more memorable games of all time, which wouldn't have happened had Laettner gotten kicked out of the game the way he should have. But Draymond Green retaliated, basically. But did he go too far retaliating? Probably, when you stomp hard on a guy's chest. But so he got kicked out of the game. Should he have gotten kicked out of an additional game? It's in question. After that, a couple of nights ago, Joel Embiid knees someone, doesn't get kicked out of the game. James Harden gives a little push, and James Harden gets kicked out, kind of to even it out. The question's this, guys. Do we come down too hard on the guy who retaliates? It seems, the guy who gets kicked out, he's always retaliating. He's not the instigator. They always catch the guy doing something second. And in this day of going to the videotape, why can't they just go to the videotape and see what starts the whole thing? I mean, I don't think I'm answering the question, Doc, but really, because I'm a little, turned off by this whole thing. It's like someone's allowed to always be given a free shot, like the first warning, like a pitcher. He throws and knocks down a batter, okay? He's given a warning. He knows he's not supposed to throw near the guy's head, but he's given a warning. Second pitch comes close to the batter. The batter charges the mound. The batter might get kicked out, probably gets kicked out. The pitcher might not get kicked out, okay, if he doesn't hit him. But who actually starts this whole thing? I mean, it seems like guys are given a free pass in boxing too. I've heard fighters say, well, the referee has to give me a warning before deducting a point. So they have an open ticket to hit a guy in the groin or to rabbit punch him, knowing they won't have a point taken away initially. They'll just be given a warning. Okay, and then when the other guy retaliates, listen, the worst case of a foul in sports history, would you guys agree, going overboard was Mike Tyson biting Evander Holyfield's ear. It didn't get worse than that. We agree on that. Holyfield had been butting Tyson with his head throughout the fight. But, Tyson went obviously ridiculously overboard in the way he retaliated, but nothing was being done with Holyfield butting him with the head. And Holyfield's argument was, it's like basketball, getting position under the boards. My head hit him because I was getting position, first. I got to an area before he did. So, but I think the leagues have to change their policy on this. I don't think Draymond Green should have gotten suspended the second game. I don't think James Harden should have gotten kicked out of the, ejected from the last game. When too many guys are getting ejected because they're retaliating and the initial offenders aren't.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think in Draymond Green's case, though, Sabonis did hold his leg. Draymond Green said he was trying to push off so he could get down the court, and he had to step his foot to keep his balance, so he stepped down his foot quick. I don't know what really happened, whether he did it on purpose or not. I think it looked worse than it was. And then he gets kicked out of the game. And I think what gave him the suspension, Jack, and we talked about that, was what he did with the fans. When he went over to the fans and started tell them, come on, say what you got to say, do what you want to do. I'm here, I hear you. And I mean, he made a big spectacle out of it. I think if he didn't make a big spectacle out of it, he wouldn't have got suspended. If he just went back to the bench and was quiet about it, I think he wouldn't have got suspended. So I think that's what's Draymond Green's fault. It's a shame. He's been with the Warriors a long time. They may make another championship run here that he could have been part of again, but he's the type of player that they kept around because he's defensive savvy and he's an intimidator. And I don't care what the Warriors say, that's why they have him on the court. It's not because he's the greatest shooter in the world or that he's the biggest guy. He likes to intimidate, talk trash to the team, and that's why the Warriors have him on the team. And now that it's not working for him, I don't think Draymond Green is going to be around after the end of this year, Jack.
Well, the Warriors are down 2-1 to Sacramento, so they're alive. But sometimes organizations provoke. I remember basketball player Jerry Stackhouse. He's with the Pistons. They're playing the Nets. He gets ejected from the game, and on the way out, the speaker's blaring the song "Hit the Road, Jack." The music playing. That could have set him off.
Sure.
I mean, what are they doing? The guy has to feel bad getting ejected. He's emotional, and they're playing a song like, So.
Oh, they do that too with na 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 na.
Yeah,
na na na. Right? They do that. Like pitcher comes out of the game, and I mean, if you're a professional athlete, you have to understand that these things are going to happen, right? Right? Going back to the other stuff, like they're going to play the song when you get kicked out of the game. There was that guy in the Guardians last year, Naylor, right? And "You're My Baby," and then he got out in a big spot. He shouldn't have done that in the first place. He was trying to show up the Yankees, but then he got out and everybody was doing it back to him, and he deserved it. And to his credit, he said that afterwards. He's like, yeah, well, I went overboard and they gave it back to me when I failed. I deserved it. So
yeah. Well, there's always a difference involved whether you're trying to rub it in the guy's face, when he feels bad unnecessarily, or celebrating. I mean, players are too sensitive, sometimes. If someone is just celebrating, but you can't go overboard celebrating. I forgot who the player was in Major League Baseball. And the Marlins, I think he hit a home run the other day, and he's doing a backflip. He's doing this. He's doing that around the bases. It goes to be sometimes you go a little too far. Yeah. I mean, I'm against pitchers ever throwing at a guy. But if a guy acts utterly ridiculous and he's humiliating me and I'm on the mound, even knowing my personality, I might not mind clunking him in the ribs if he's going way overboard, being ridiculous.
But then on the other end, there were pitchers that what was his name? Eckersley used to, after he gets the guy out.
I think that's the competition. Parties just pointing, I got you that time. Get even with him, get a hit off him, and then point to him. Then if Eckersley throws at you, now there's a big problem. Then Eckersley would have crossed the line. Bryce Harper said it best. He wants to see that type of stuff.
Well, there are players, that thrive in that environment.
But but it can't be done and to the point where you're humiliating the guy. If you're turning it into the competitive thing, I'm going to get a hit off you. I'm ready. I got the bat. Make it a competition. Don't throw at the guy. Okay. I mean, the other day, Doc, I talked about Pedro Martinez to Mac. I said, I think he's a miserable individual to throw behind Kareem Garcia's head. No remorse. He tried to justify it. You know why? Because the Yankees were hitting him. No one would, if they were trying to humiliate him in any way, I can at least understand that, if not condone it. And, but that's not a reason because you're hitting a guy, having success against him, you're going to throw at him.
I don't disagree. All right, so let's move on. Question number 4. Let's see what we got here. Oh, this is a good one because we are, as we started the show mentioning, we are in the heart of the postseason for 2 of the 4 major sports. We've got the hockey playoffs. We've got the basketball playoffs. It wasn't that long ago that we had the NFL playoffs and baseball starting to gear up for the regular season, ultimately for the postseason championship. But for each of you, which do you find the most compelling? Is it baseball's postseason tournament, football's, basketball's, hockey's? Is it the World Cup even? What's the most compelling?
I think of course it's the NFL, and that's the one and done stuff. I mean, you can always make a comeback. You can, and when you're doing the best out of 7, the best out of 5, to me it's melodramatic. You get the last game anyway. That's what you want to see. The NFL provides that. You could even throw March Madness in there. That's a heck of a playoff too, where it's one and you're done. I think the ultimate, even doing what I'm doing here, interviewing certain football players, how the magnitude of that one game, how much it hurts when you lose it. You think about that more than you think about winning a particular game. I mean, that dramatic is what makes the sport exciting, which keeps you on the edge of your seat. Be honest, if it's the World Series, unless it's the Yankees, game 1's not interesting all the way up to the last game of the World Series. If it's tied and you're in game 7, you're going to watch it. But other than that, you're really not interested. You look at the scores and see what's going on. But until that last game, I mean, I'm not watching it until it's going to have to be decided. And that's, to me, what sports are all about.
I'm going to tell you guys, I mean, I have to call an audible because I don't know why in my own head I was thinking of the 4 major sports, baseball, football, basketball, and hockey. But then Doc mentions the World Cup. You mentioned the NCAA tournament. And in all honesty, both your choices exceed the 4 major sports. I mean, the more I think of it, the NBA, it's exciting, but maybe not overly exciting because usually we have an idea who it's going to come down to at the end. Sometimes we pick upsets like I like to do, and I'm going to probably fall flat on my face, from what I did earlier. But it's usually we know who's probably there at the end. Football, you get your upsets. The Super Bowl is amazingly exciting. But, you have ideas. Baseball could be a little boring if it's not our team. I mean, if the St. Louis Cardinals are playing the Milwaukee Brewers, and I'll be honest, am I really going to sit down in front of my TV and watch the whole 9 innings? I mean, no way. I'm going to be doing a lot of other things. The TV will be on, I'll be doing this, doing that. I'll catch a batter, then, come back a few batters later, watch a couple of pitches in all honesty. But you talk about the World Cup. Man, oh man, this year's World Cup, I remember being in the gym and I remember seeing all these guys crowded around the TV talking about it. And these are American guys talking about foreign players and what it means to countries, the World Cup. I mean, it's not just a regional thing, the patriotic pride. And we'd have it in the USA if we made a run at the title with our men's team, okay? And then the NCAA tournament. people who don't know anything about basketball on all these office pools. I mean, they're following it just to see how their betting interest, goes in that. And so, guys, oh man. I'd say the World Cup. I'm calling an audible. I was going to say hockey amongst the four major sports, and I'm not a big hockey fan because it's so unpredictable, the NHL playoffs. It's so exciting. The worst team entering the playoffs is more likely to beat the best team as opposed to other sports, and that alone makes it so dramatic and exciting. And by the way, kudos to the New York Islanders. They broke a record that was in existence something like 78 years yesterday by scoring 4 playoff goals in the span of 2 hours, 2 minutes and 38 seconds. So they, to break the game open. So kudos to the Islanders. They're still down 2-1 to the Carolina Hurricanes. But after listening to both of you guys, I'll say the World Cup has to be the most exciting tournament because it's once every 4 years, Mac. You mentioned the NCAA tournament. I mean, wow, you don't even have to be a basketball fan to love that tournament.
Ex-boxers don't get to call an audible. You had to have been an ex-quarterback, Jack, just so you know. So thank you for that, Rick. Yeah, so to be honest, everybody knows this. I don't follow basketball or hockey. I don't find those sports interesting in the least bit. That's just the way it is. So I don't watch their playoffs. I don't know who wins each year. I don't follow it at all in any way, shape, or form.
Well, maybe this year doing a show, maybe you will, Doc.
I doubt it. I have other things to do. My son, my one son, he's big into the Devils right now. He got into the Devils big time, and they're obviously losing in their series, but he's like, it's so much fun. My other son lives in Hershey, PA, which is actually there's 2 interesting sports things that happen in Hershey, Pennsylvania. Johnny Unitas played his first professional game ever in Hershey. And of course, Wilt Chamberlain had his 100-point game in Hershey. So a couple of little Hershey things, but he's a big fan now. Never grew up as a hockey family. He goes to the Hershey Bear games all the time with his wife. They love the Hershey Bears. They love professional hockey. We've gone to a couple games. It's okay. I'll watch it, but I have no interest. I'm not going to become a big hockey fan.
Doc, your son, I just want to say something about your son. He makes a point that's very thought-provoking. For pure fun as a fan, now that I think of it, going to hockey games is more fun than going to a baseball game, a football game, even maybe a basketball game. I think hockey is the most fun.
A lot of people say that.
How the crowd interacts there. They're having, something about the fun aspect. Mac, we're relaxed at a baseball game. You socialize, you do this.
True.
It's slow paced. It's
but
slow.
in
And in
football,
we're into the game too much.
Yeah, but you got the tailgate party, Jack. That's where all the fun is. I mean, the fun. Yeah, I mean, you're eating, you're drinking, you're having fun with your friends. I mean, that's where the fun is at football games. It's not so much. I mean, it's a lot more tense in the football game, a lot more crazier, but that's where you have your good time, is in the tailgate parties.
Problem with football when you go to a football game is it's often cold, and football is a lot of standing around. There's a lot of standing around. The action happens. It's 10 or 15 seconds, and then there's a lot of standing around.
Yeah,
so
it gives you time to drink that beer and eat that hot dog, Doc. That's what
But anyway, when it comes to the tournaments, I would say the football playoffs interest me as a huge baseball fan more than the baseball playoffs. You guys hit it on the nose. I don't care if the St. Louis Cardinals are playing the Milwaukee Brewers. I don't care if the Red Sox are playing the Tigers. If the Yankees are in, I care. If the Yankees aren't in, I don't really care. But in football, I'm interested enough that I'll root for individual players or individual teams or individual stories. I can get caught up in that. Oh, is Josh Allen going to finally beat Joe Burrow? That should be interesting. Or is Patrick Mahomes going to continue to be a great quarterback? That's interesting. Does Aaron Rodgers have one last great drive in him? Sure, that's interesting. I don't get that same kind of interest in baseball. Oh, is Albert Pujols going to go 3 for 4 in his final playoff game ever? I don't really care. So those are my thoughts. The World Cup was great, but I think the flaw there is the games just go on. I love the fact that there's no commercials, but they just go on without any real scoring. And then after playing so well, these defensive teams, it comes down to the kick out, the shootout, which I get, and which was very tense and dramatic. But it's sort of like in the end, it's like we played 120 minutes of soccer or whatever, and then we're going to finish it up by just kicking at a goal. And 9 times out of 10, if the goalie blocks it, or so it seems, it's just that he guessed right. I think he's going to go that side. I'll dive that way. And they dive that way and the ball goes the other way. He guessed wrong. They win. It's just kind of silly.
But the other sports have adopted new rules for overtime in baseball.
I hate it.
Don't like it. Runners at second base.
It's just silly. It's so silly. And that's designed for one thing, because they don't think the fans are smart enough or patient enough to let the game play out the right way. So what we have to do is
they don't want the game to go on. They don't want the game to go on forever. The games are going on too long. I mean, I would have favored a home run derby format that each team gets 10 swings. The fans would love it to see. You put your power hitters up there, Judge, Stanton when he's healthy.
Talking about changing rules. Talking about changing more rules. Come on.
Basketball plays it straight out to 5 minutes, but hockey has the equivalent of penalty kicks in their shootout. What's the difference in hockey and
there is
soccer?
none. There is none.
Exactly.
There is none. They just came up with a new rule in college where there is no stopping the clock at all. You've got to get up to the line and go fast as you can, because the college football games have been going on for so long. Like, they're longer than NFL games because of spread offense. All they're doing is throwing the ball. And if you miss the ball, of course, it's incomplete. Clock stops. Every time you get a first down, the clock stops. So the games have been dragging on. So they've just changed that rule to speed the game up too.
Interesting. Good stuff. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the Ghost Runner. Oh, and especially the way it works. So you come up in the bottom of the 9th, winning run at third base, and you whiff, right? You had a 3-0 count. The pitcher comes back, throws 3 pitches past you. You had no chance. You struck out. You could have won the game for your team. Now it goes to extra innings. Oh, guess what? The guy who failed is the guy who gets to be the runner. Then the next guy drives you home and you get all these high fives like you did something great. You blew it. You're the reason everybody had to play that extra inning. I don't know. The whole thing
reminds me of it must have been about 10, 12 years ago. A-Rod gets up and he pops the ball up for the final out of the game. Apparently, they're playing the Mets. I forgot the Mets second baseman. He drops the ball.
Luis Castillo.
Oh, thanks. And everyone is then mobbing A-Rod a moment later, because after he slammed his bat, he choked again in a big spot. He's a hero. But
interesting stuff. Now, I'm going to let you guys debate this one, and then I'm going to take a quick step out. Or should we do the commercials first and then come back to the question about, you want to go commercials? All right, we'll go to the commercials. And then we'll come back, and you guys could talk together about who the Carolina Panthers should take on the first pick of the NFL draft on April 27th. I have no clue.
Mac's judgment will be better than mine when it comes to college quarterbacks.
Look, before we get to that, we're going to go to commercials. I'll throw some commercials up there. You guys can take a break, and then I'll take a break when you guys debate the NFL draft. So let's get some commercials going. We'll go see what the AmVets are saying. We'll be back in just a couple minutes.
Supporting the needs of our veterans. That's the goal of all of us at Team AmVets. Like Mitch, Carlos, and Kevin from our Welcome Home team that brings furniture to our vets.
We are Team AmVets.
Or Linda from our thrift stores who brings you great bargains every day.
I am Team AmVets.
And John, who picks up your thrift store donations that support California veterans programs.
I am Team AmVets.
Visit our website or a Team AmVets thrift store to donate or shop today.
Join the team!
What? You haven't gotten a copy of the Roy White book From Compton to the Bronx yet? Oh my goodness. This is a book you need. Ian O'Connor says Paul Semendinger does a masterful job capturing the essence of the great left fielder. It's called a must-read about the most underrated Yankee of all time. The book came out last week, and It was even a #1 bestseller on Amazon last week in baseball biographies. So if you haven't read From Compton to the Bronx, if you don't own this book and have it as part of your library, you're missing out on something big. This is a book you need to have. From Compton to the Bronx, the story of the great Roy White, written by me with Roy White. Or actually written by Roy White with me is, I guess, how it goes. But you get the idea. From Compton to the Bronx. Get a copy. You will not be sorry. All right, let's get to another commercial. I thought I had it here, but now I got it. Here we go.
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, I'm from Brooklyn. Hey, get any.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Anyone else?
My name is David, and in 8 years, I'll be an alcoholic.
Hi, David.
I'll start drinking in middle school, just at parties. But my parents won't start talking to me about it till high school. And by then, I'll already be in some trouble.
Kids who drink before age 15 are 5 times more likely to have alcohol problems when they're adults.
The thing is, my parents won't even see it coming.
So start talking.
Who's next?
Before they start drinking.
What? You haven't read The Least Among Them yet? The great story of the 29 Yankees, whose entire career lasted for just one game, award-winning, considered one of the books of the year by National Review in 2021. The Least Among Them. If you love sports, if you love baseball, you're going to love this book. It talks about those great 29 players, or those 29 players who actually turned out not to be great, but it also tells 29 other great stories about the Yankees and baseball history. You'll see the Yankees in a different light than ever before. The Least Among Them. Make sure you get a copy of that book as well as the Roy White book today. And if not today, then you have to do it tomorrow. One more commercial. My favorite one of all time.
Please, take them out.
Mr. Green? Mr. Green?
Yeah.
You need any help?
Mm-mm.
I just want you to know, I think you're the best ever.
Yeah, sure.
Want my Coke? It's okay, you can have it.
No.
Really, you can have it.
Okay.
A Coke and a smile makes me feel good. Makes me feel nice.
Be around.
That's the way it should be. I like to see
Hey, kid.
the whole world smiling with me. Coca-Cola as life. Have a Coke and
Thanks, Mean Joe.
smile.
You know, I think that commercial just epitomizes everything about sports. The fact that he's Mean Joe and he turns with a big smile and gives the kid the jersey, the fact that the little kid looks up to the sports hero, the fact that the sports hero is uncomfortable and in pain after playing so hard, and how just kindness brings people together. It's just the best. Love that commercial. Hey, Jack, what's your favorite sports commercial of all time?
Oh, I got to give it some thought. Doc, you're supposed to give me a chance to prepare to think it out. You threw that one at me quickly. Oh, boy. I mean, why didn't you ask me my favorite movie? I go Rocky 1.
There we go.
Yeah, that would have been a no-brainer.
No-brainer.
I can't say offhand which it would have been.
That's
You know
fair.
which one I think it was? I'll tell you which commercial it was. Okay. Now, I needed a few seconds to digest because I'm a little slow, behind. One with Smoking Joe Frazier. He was, I think it was like a beer commercial or something, and he was singing. And when he got done, he looked at the audience and everyone was quiet. He had a smile on his face and then he had a scowl. He looked mad because no one was cheering. And then they started to cheer and he smiled and it was like he took
That was an old Miller Lite commercial, I believe.
Yeah.
Those
So
were
I
classics.
So I got a big kick out of that. Also, another one which was kind of funny in a way, even though it was, you may have looked at it dry. George Steinbrenner, Billy Martin, less filling, this and that to be a commercial. And then George says to Billy Martin, "You're fired." And Billy Martin goes, "Oh, no, not again." It was plain, but it was kind of ironic because it was like a real life thing with Steinbrenner so routinely would fire Billy Martin.
Absolutely. Those are great ones. I loved those old ESPN commercials too, the Sports Center ones. My favorite was the one with Big Papi and Jorge Posada, and they're sitting there in the ESPN studios, and Posada's looking at his Yankee hat and it's brand new, and Big Papi says, "Man, that hat's brand new. You can't have a hat like that. You got to work on the rim." And he puts the Yankee hat on his head, and Wally, the Red Sox mascot, walks by in the background and he sees Big Papi with the Yankee hat on, and he drops his plate full of stuff. And Big Papi's like, "No, it's not what you think, Wally. I'm not going to the Yankees." It's great. That's a great commercial.
I didn't see that one. I would, yeah.
Go into Google and just type in Big Papi Yankee hat ESPN.
Right,
it's classic.
Yeah, absolutely.
And here our buddy Mac is back. Mac, do you have a favorite sports commercial of all time?
Well, first, Jack is wrong as always. The best Rocky movie was the last one, Balboa. The story about him and his son getting back together, and it's not how many times you get knocked down, it's how many times you get up. I mean, that was classic. That's probably my favorite Rocky movie.
That's a good one, Max. That people use that kind of as a lesson in life to talk to someone else.
Yeah.
It's ironic. Yeah.
And as far as commercial goes, it wouldn't be a sports commercial. It has to be the Campbell's. No, the Oscar Mayer Wiener one. So politically incorrect when they say fat kids, skinny kids, sissy kids.
Oh, that wasn't Oscar Mayer. That was oh my goodness. I just had Armour hot dogs.
Yes. You don't hear that anymore on commercials, so that's why I enjoy that so much.
With the cereal Mapo. I remember as a little kid, they'd have Mickey Mantle, Wilt Chamberlain, and then "I want my Mapo," like little kids. There was a commercial with Whitey Ford. I forgot what the product was, but this is ironic. I remember this. They would say, "If you could throw a baseball 60 miles per hour," I would think of that, 60 miles per hour, and they made it out like, wow, Whitey Ford could really gun that ball 60 miles per hour. Now if a guy throws 60 miles per hour, he's done. He's washed up. He got nothing going. But they didn't have like the radar, gun at the time to judge how quick someone can throw.
Right.
Are we getting too sensitive? Because I'm going to tell you something from my end. I feel the sensitivity in terms being used because of what's going on in society with gun violence. And we hear an outfielder, they say, "Oh, he guns the ball," and meaning he has a powerful arm. When you and I, Mac, had Phil Simms on the show a long, long time ago, we're talking about one of his past games, and I used the term, it would have been good if you took a shot at the end zone, but that was a typical term being used.
Yeah,
as a society, I'm self-conscious now,
Well,
but
you
I'm
should be.
using old-timer terms. I shouldn't be, I don't think.
Not at all, Jack. I mean, you know, he threw a bullet. He caught a bomb.
There you go. The term a bullet.
I'll tell you two things that actually relate to that exactly. The first one is this. The most famous poem in the entire history of our country is a poem about baseball, of course, Casey at the Bat. But most people don't know how it goes, and it begins like this. The outlook wasn't brilliant for the Mudville Nine that day. The score stood 4-2 with but 1 inning more to play. And when Cooney died at first, and Barrows did the same, a sickly silence fell upon the patrons of the game. Later on in that same poem, when Casey misses the first pitch, he goes by and passed by the ball. Kill him! Kill the umpire! Shouted someone from the stand, and it's likely they may have, if not Casey raised his hand. Right? So I mean, Mac was making this point before, like this kind of stuff's been part of sports forever, but we do use terms. We use real life terms to describe sports. And back when baseball was in its infancy, players were considered dying on the bases. So I mean, that's what they said.
But even a term in boxing, I don't like to use it anymore, and I've cut down on it, and maybe I'll eliminate it completely. A very exciting give and take fight is sometimes referred to as being a war. Now, is that disrespectful towards soldiers who are really involved in a real life war?
No. It's terms, Jack, it's terms that we used, and even still use today sometimes in describing something. And you know, if you're going to let everybody tell you what to say and how to say it, I mean, it gives up a little freedom of your freedom of speech and what you can and can't say. You know, to me, you stay the same. Society evolves into whatever it evolves in. You might get in trouble, but that's the way we talk. That's the way we always talk.
I believe it was, I forget the exact year, but if maybe it was 2005. I'm not sure if A-Rod was still around in 2015 off the top of my head, but I guess it was 2005. That would have been the anniversary of the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And John Sterling's home run call for Alex Rodriguez was, "It's an A-bomb from A-Rod." And he faced a lot of backlash on that. And I believe he stopped it for the rest of that year. It must have been 2005. Because of the insensitivity that people felt they heard when he was calling, you know, something an A-bomb, you know, when obviously the A-bomb was something that devastated 2 cities in Japan. And, you know, we could get into the historical aspects of that. It ended the war, saved lives of American soldiers, et cetera, et cetera. That's not the point here. But the point that Jack's making is that, you know, the words do have meanings. And sometimes we do reflect back on language. But I think the idea of war and what's a blitz? Blitz comes from what the Germans did in World War II with the Blitzkrieg, right? Like sure. I think sports mirrors those same human reactions and those same feelings that are part of the human struggle, which are also used to describe things like war. So in fact, even wins above replacement is called war. There's a war about war, right? So people who like analytics against the people who don't like analytics.
Byron Williams was talking about when he was a wide receiver for the Giants, he would have lapses in concentration sometimes where he wouldn't catch all the passes coming his way. And he said Bill Parcells sent him to a concentration camp. Right. Now it sounds funny, I admit, you know, and if you knew my background, you'd be amazed I could smile at it. But you know, it's kind of, you know, some people would get incredibly sensitive about it, you know, that
and rightfully so with that word, right? Sure.
Yeah, believe me, yeah, and I certainly would have a right if you knew my background, which I'm not going to get into. But the point is, it's like it's the intent to me. It's always the intent. And to me, someone's allowed to slip up now and then. You know, if they say something, it comes out the wrong way, they sincerely regret it. You let it go. I mean,
but you can't hold on to things forever either. No doubt.
You're living in an odd world. world. I want to get off the topic now to this, and I didn't put this as a debate question. Unless are you with us right now, Doc? Are you coming back? Because this is a question I wanted to get your input on this, because you'd have.
Well, I could take a break. I was just going to go get a drink,
Okay.
so I could wait for the drink, and we could do this, and then I'll take a quick walk.
Yeah. Okay. Base running. I keep forgetting to put this down as a debate question. The worst base running blunder in Major League history. Now, I have an idea, and I'm going to tell you mine. Let me start off. I'm fascinated with the 1955 World Series, the only time the Brooklyn Dodgers ever won it. Being a Yankee fan, I was a kid from Brooklyn. I don't know whether I've been a Yankee or Dodger fan growing up, okay? Because being in Brooklyn, it may have been in my DNA at the time. But the ball that Sandy Amoros hit, the ball that Yogi Berra hit that Sandy Amoros made that catch sprinting down, to the left field corner after playing towards center field. The Yankees have runners on first and second at the time and 1 out, okay? Amoros makes a sensational catch. Gil McDougall on first base gets doubled off. To me, what a terrible base running play that no one ever talks about. How on earth Gil McDougall represented the tying run? But you can't get doubled off the base, doubled off first base. Remember that? Sandy Amoros then hits Pee Wee Reese with a relay throw. Pee Wee Reese throws to first base to Gil Hodges, and Gil McDougall is doubled off. You remember that play, right? To me,
I know the play. Yeah, one of the most famous plays.
Right, but no one ever talks about Gil McDougall getting doubled off first base.
That's a great question, and it's something to think about. If that ball falls and he scores, people would say, "Wow, he really read that play right." I'm gonna change the argument there and give a different example. Jeremy Giambi was tagged out trying to score on a hit to right field in that 2001, I believe, playoff game with the Yankees against the A's when Jeter makes the flip. Was he wrong to try to score even though he was out? I don't think so, because the likelihood of Jeter making that play is what makes that play so remarkable. And I think you could say and make that exact same argument for the Amoros play. McDougall saw where Yogi hit it. Now, remember, Yogi's a left-handed batter, and he hit it to left field, right down the line there. And Amoros goes over and makes this crazy catch. I don't think anybody thought he was going to get to that ball. The fact that he caught it was a miracle of sorts. And, sometimes players do things that nobody expects to happen. And McDougall figured no one ever catches that ball if Yogi hits it that way. And it just happened that on that play he did. And he got doubled up. But I don't know if that was a boneheaded play. When you say the worst base running ever, the play that sticks in my mind is probably from like 1985 or 86. The Yankees are playing the White Sox, I believe. And I forget exactly the situation. But I remember Bobby Meacham and somebody else getting tagged out on the same play at home 2 years in a row, being sent home, and Carlton Fisk getting the ball, like tagging one and then tagging the other. That had to be.
I guess I'm talking about in important situations. Just with Jeremy Giambi, no one disputes that he should have tried to score. That's a no-brainer. He didn't slide. That's the knock on him. He went in standing up, and Posada made the tag. A lot of people feel had he slid, he would have beaten.
But he had no even thought that the ball would be there. There was not even a thought in his mind, because and think about this. The fact that Gil McDougall has never become a GOAT, the old meaning of GOAT, before it meant greatest of all time. GOAT used to be the person who makes the biggest blunder. The fact that that's pretty much disappeared from baseball, most people's baseball memories, is the fact that at the time, I don't think people thought McDougall was doing the wrong thing.
The worst that would have happened had McDougall been a little bit conservative. The worst that would have happened, the Yankees would have been 2-1 now instead of 2-0, second and third, 1 out. Worst case scenario.
If he tagged.
Super conservative. But full well, a ball is hit down the line. you run as far as you can and give yourself enough latitude to get back just in case a catch has been made. And McDougal had to be running. The play was facing him from first base to left field. He was able to follow the ball. If it was hit to right field behind them, I could maybe understand it a little more. The ball was in back of him. And I thought it was completely inexcusable for him to get.
Well, couldn't you blame the first base coach for that? I mean, he's watching the ball.
No, McDougal was on first base.
Right, with the first base coach.
He takes off on the ball, hit to left field. The first base coach is out of the question.
But why isn't the first base coach saying hold up until you're sure if he catches it or not?
No, well, you're not going to hold up. That's an instinct play. The ball is hit. The runner doesn't wait for coach to tell him. He knows to go off the base and run, but only go so far in case the ball is caught to be able to get back.
I think part of that play is the fact that Amoros made a miraculous catch. And the fact that no one expected it to happen is the reason he got doubled up, because nobody expected it to happen.
But McDougal got thrown out at first, not with a lot of room to spare. So if he thought the Amoros had no chance of getting it, he wouldn't have even been close to getting back to first base in reality. He would have just been jetting around the bases. He would have been practically at third base by the time Amoros caught it. So it wouldn't have even been close to play at first. So McDougal, in a sense, was in nowhere's land. He didn't go all out running. So it just shows how close the play was. He ran enough and had some concern that the ball might get caught. That's what it would indicate, at least to me, by how much he was thrown out by. And no one calls him out on it. What were you doing getting doubled off the base? He's been given historically a complete pass on that play. And had McDougal not gotten doubled off, Yankees would have had, 2 men on base, 2 outs. I can't remember who the next batter was. Who knows how history may have played out?
It's a fair point. Wasn't there a play, Enos Slaughter, World Series, maybe 1946? I'm really digging back on this one, but he scores from first base on a hit, and the only reason he scored was because the shortstop bobbled the ball for a moment, and it was a quick little bobble. But if he didn't do that, he would have been out. And again, it comes down to sometimes things just happen on a baseball field, right? Like he celebrated for making the mad dash around the bases, but he would have been out. But he wasn't, because the guy bobbled the ball.
Yeah.
So it was actually a bad base running decision that worked out for the good, and he becomes a hero.
Well, doesn't happen to every sport, guys? I mean, you see a football player running down the football field. He slows down because he thinks he's got a touchdown. He's ready to celebrate, and somebody knocks the ball out of his hand, and it's a fumble. I imagine it happens in basketball too, where the ball gets stolen on a dumb throw in from the side, and the ball gets stolen. I mean, remember Larry Bird's play where Isaiah Thomas, right, and all of a sudden the Celtics score on a play they should have never scored on. So it happens in all sports, I think.
But baseball is a cruelest sport. You may make great points, Mac. Isaiah Thomas threw the ball in. Bad blunder. But no one thinks of Isaiah Thomas in those terms. They think of the great player. That didn't define his career at all. But certain guys, like we talked about base running blunders, there was this guy, Merkel, who missed
Fred,
the base.
yeah.
And people, it would hound him the rest of his life, Merkel's blunder. And I gave a point on the past show to you guys. Paul O'Neill had his number retired by the Yankees. But if he drops the ball, the last out at David Wells' perfect game, he's no longer a Yankee legend. When we think of Paul McNeil, he might not even be in the Yankee broadcast booth. That would have defined him in a sense, as cruel as it is. One play sometimes, means so much it shouldn't. I mean, what a terrible sport. You could play 18 years and make one bad, costly play. And that's
Bill
what
Buckner.
Think about you.
And Fred Merkel was a good ball player. So I'm going to leave you on this, and I'm not going to say the word because it's just inappropriate. But we were talking about words having different meanings and things like that. If you go back in baseball history and you look up Fred Merkel's boneheaded play, that play was known by a different name for probably 60 or 80 years, a word that has a whole different connotation today. So anyway, I'll leave it at that. The question you guys are going to talk about is the Carolina Panthers and the NFL draft. I'll be back probably in less than 30 seconds. I'm just going to get a drink, and you guys can debate it. And who are they going to get in the draft? Go for it.
Yeah, help me out here, Matt, because you have such a good record on these college quarterbacks, better than all the scouts, better than the NFL scouts. I mean, you're number one far and away, and you have a proven track record in telling us how they're going to work out, even though it's impossible always to tell. I'm sure one of the college quarterbacks who's not going to be drafted highly is going to be a top-of-the-line quarterback going forward. No idea who it's going to be. But the Carolina Panthers traded to move up to go number one. I mean, obviously they did it to pick a quarterback. So we know they're going to pick a quarterback. What should they do?
Well, they definitely. I mean, I don't know who's their quarterback right now, Jack, on the Carolina Panthers. Is that?
Yeah. Oh boy, they got. Was it Andy Dalton?
Andy
for
Dalton,
the one.
right.
Yeah. Like Andy Dalton's going to be a stopgap guy, obviously. So whoever they get will play behind them. If not the whole season, probably initially. Even though you never know, the college quarterback could come to training camp and be great and adjust, and they might go with them early. You can never tell.
Well, there's been talks of Bryce Young. I think I've said on the other shows, I don't think Bryce Young is going to be a great quarterback. He might be okay. I think he's going to be like a Kyle Murray. I think he's going to get hurt because of his frame. I mean, if you're looking long-term at Bryce Young, I don't think he's going to be what people say he's going to be. I don't think he's going to be a franchise quarterback.
Will he be that short-term for about 2-3 years? Well, Kyler Murray made a couple of Pro Bowls.
Right.
Will Bryce Young be on that level really good for maybe
I think
2-3
so.
years?
I think so, Jack. My favorite quarterback is, and I've said, is CJ Stroud. I think he's a big guy who, even though he has had problems, I guess the problems are with the coaching staff, where he's kind of, he goes against the grain with them. He wants so bad to win. He thinks he's the man, and that's the problem I've seen come up lately with CJ Stroud. But he's a very good quarterback. He can run. He can pass. Has a great arm. He's very accurate. He's my best quarterback out there. If I was them, I'd take CJ Stroud and let Bryce Young go to another team. But it looks like they're going to take. It looks like they're going to take Bryce Young. And again, I put him on a par, as you know, with got a brain freeze here, with the Cardinals quarterback right now. They're both
Kyler Murray. Yeah.
They're both little guys. Kyler Murray's a little bit heavier than him too, Jack. He's a little bit. He's a short, stocky guy, where Bryce Young is very thin. So one good shot and Bryce Young can get hurt. And, you got some big guys that are really fast there right now in the NFL. And that's what I'm worried about with Bryce Young anyway.
Yeah, the ironic thing about CJ Stroud, I hear that the Houston Texans, who badly need a quarterback, aren't going to select a quarterback. They go number 2 in the draft. And then Arizona, who goes number 3, unless they trade down, then they got Kyler Murray. They're not going to take a quarterback. And Indianapolis goes number 4. And for all we know, they might go with Anthony Richardson based on his potential over CJ Stroud. So I'm seeing these mock drafts, Mac. And if CJ Stroud is available to the Detroit Lions at number 6, which is a possibility, how do they turn a talent like that down, even though they got Jared Goff? I mean, it's all whatever. But I'm going to tell you, once a guy starts sliding a little like C.J. Stroud, and he's at number 6, what happens if the Jets love this guy? They think he's a sure thing, and all of a sudden, they detour and they call up the Lions saying, we'll give you our number 13 pick, and we'll give you one of our second-round picks, number 43, and see if the Lions make that deal. And all of a sudden, the Giants drop Aaron Rodgers like that out of nowhere. You kind of wonder how obligated are the Jets going to feel to Aaron Rodgers right now.
Yeah,
they feel a sense of obligation.
I think they do because of that. He said he wanted to go there, but it's getting late, and the Green Bay Packers aren't budging. The Jets aren't budging. It has nothing to do with Aaron Rodgers no more. Aaron Rodgers is out of the equation right now. It's between those two teams. I've heard Richardson's going to the Falcons. That's the last thing I've heard, and I believe that's going to be true.
They go number 8 if he's going to last to that point.
Yeah,
we don't know. But with the Aaron Rodgers thing, sometimes it's not an organizational decision. The GM, the coach, the front office, they have to defer to the owner at the end. And Woody Johnson is a strong owner.
Yeah,
his stamp decides what goes on. He commands the power. It's not like with New England. Robert Kraft is the main guy, but Bill Belichick has a lot of power. Robert Kraft just isn't going to tell Bill Belichick, you do this, and he's not going to, Bill Belichick isn't going to fear I'm going to lose my job. He can push back. No one can push back on Woody Johnson in the Jet organization. And I heard Woody Johnson is concerned Aaron Rodgers might not play more than 1 year. He might get turned off, and he might say, I want you guys making a deal drafting the quarterback. You never know what could happen.
Well, we know
you feel Carolina should draft C.J. Stroud.
That would be. I would think that would be my choice as a GM. If they're going to do that, I don't know. A lot of people pick quarterbacks, and you said this before, not on their performance, and not don't get me wrong, Bryce Young has performed well, but he even got hurt in that game. And in the playoff game there, and he went in and he played, showed a lot of guts, but he did get hurt. And this is something that I think should concern the Panthers. You're not playing college now; you're playing pros. So I would be concerned, not wasting, but making him my first round draft pick if the possibility is strong, which I think it is, that he's going to get hurt.
What did the 49ers do with Trey Lance? I know you hated Trey Lance. Can Trey Lance be a starter in the league?
Not presently. Not presently. He needs a lot of work. He hasn't played a lot. Been injured. I guess he's a good athlete. I've never seen him play hardly at all. I think I've seen him play one game with the 49ers, and it wasn't that good. He gets injured a lot. He didn't play a lot in college. Played some. In the pros, hardly at all. We really don't know what he is. I don't think anybody can tell me really what he is, except what they think he can be. And that, again, is dangerous. That you're making projections on something you really don't even know nothing about.
Do you think that's what's wrong with the NFL? They don't allow a guy to develop for a few years. The Jacksonville Jaguars did show a little patience, even though they had a fiasco with Urban Meyer, the coach, with Trevor Lawrence, because they knew Trevor Lawrence was going to be their guy, so they knew they would go through the growing pains. And by the second year, last year, Trevor Lawrence did show a lot of improvement.
Yes, he did.
But
he's still not, Jack. He's still not what they projected. Remember, he was a future franchise quarterback. He hasn't shown that yet. It's early yet, but he still hasn't shown that yet. I'm not
sure about that, Mac. They made the playoffs. They're kind of trending upwards. They all seem to be growing together, that team.
Zach Wilson. The coach. Go ahead, Zach Wilson.
Should the Jets have shown more patience with Zach Wilson? Take your lumps, take the booing, let him grow, and have a strong coach that's going to squash discontent in the locker room.
No, Zach Wilson is way too immature. He's way too emotional. This is why they need an older quarterback in there with him. He needs somebody to calm him down, to not be so rushed, to learn how to read a defense correctly. They basically, and you said it, they made the decision based off how he could throw at the combine. And again, these are scouts looking at athleticism over technique, over playing quarterback the way it should be played. Zach Wilson looked great in the combine, but then you put him on the field and he was a mess.
Yeah, I don't know what I say he's a mess. He did show some decent signs. They did win some games with him at quarterback.
Yeah, but it wasn't because of him, Jack. It was more because of the defense and the running game. It wasn't because of him that they won. Again, another quarterback that was rushed too soon, and that could ruin his career. A potential very good quarterback and get his career ruined again by them trying to throw him to the fire too fast.
Great questions, great points. Let me call an audible. Oh, we have a comment here too in the comments. I might have missed it from a while back. Yeah, it was a comment from a while back. I made this point. I've written about this point on my Yankee site, Sarge Spreading the News. I've made this point on the Dr. Sem Yankee show here on the Northeast Streaming Sports Network, Saturdays at 7 a.m. The Yankees have a shortstop named Anthony Volpe, because you're talking about Zach Wilson, and I see a comparison here. Volpe wasn't supposed to make the team out of spring training. It was a long shot. No one in early February said that he was going to make the team. The conventional wisdom was he needed more time in the minor leagues, but he did so great in spring training. He made the team. He's now the Yankees starting shortstop. I have no problem with any of that. But about a week ago, the Yankees started making him the leadoff hitter. I have a problem with that. The Yankees picture themselves as a world championship type of team this year, and all of a sudden you're putting all of the pressure to get the offense going on this rookie who hasn't really even played a whole lot of AAA ball, and it wasn't even supposed to make the team. Are the Yankees rushing Anthony Volpe to the point where they might actually hinder on his development? What do you guys think?
Let me ask you this, Doc. You're the guy who looks up statistics. Is Anthony Volpe leading the American League in steals? Is he leading the majors?
I believe so. If not, he's right up there.
Yeah, there's your answer right there. I mean, I'm sure the analytics take that heavily into account. Let him hit 195, but when the guy gets on base, he's turning walks into doubles, turning walks into triples at times. I mean, what he does on the bases for you, I mean, is phenomenal. And they have to believe he's going to start hitting too. And I don't know.
But regardless of how he does, even, isn't it asking a lot of a brand new player to all of a sudden be the leadoff guy? I mean, if you look back, and I did this before, and I don't have the exact number off the top of my head, Jeter, I think, batted 9th that first year. Similar circumstance, too. He wasn't really expected to necessarily be the starting shortstop. I think Tony Fernandez got hurt, and that really opened the door for him. And I think the Yankees are trying to get Felix Fermin or whatever in a trade because they weren't 100% sold on Jeter yet. But I think he batted 9th that first year, like 77 times. Like, let's let him acclimate to the big leagues before we put him as the guy who has to jumpstart the offense. He could steal 50 bases from the number 9 spot. Why couldn't he?
No, Doc, I look at it differently, Mac. Traditionally, the leadoff guy would always be like a table setter. It was like in one of the dumbest baseball traditions, which was ridiculously stupid, is that of the cleanup hitter. You put a guy hitting 4th because the cleanup hitter is going to hit a grand slam home run. And it never made sense to me. That's why Aaron Judge hit 2nd. You want to get these guys up one extra time if you can, and you do it by putting them at the top of the order. But I see a point with Anthony Volpe. It's a well-taken point. Obviously, it has to take into consideration what he does when he gets on the bases, okay? You know, that maybe he is good at drawing walks and this. He has a good eye. He is actually good in that aspect. I see a point well taken. But we don't know Anthony Volpe's level of confidence. Supposedly, he has a tremendously high level of confidence. So just play him there, and he's just going to get better as he goes along. I don't have a problem with him batting leadoff because of what he could do for you in the bases, and because of his apparent level of confidence. He's not going to get rattled. He's not going to lose confidence. You want to bat a guy ninth to take the pressure off him. This kid is oblivious to pressure, supposedly. So I don't have a problem with it. Who are you going to put there? Aaron Hicks?
Well, no, that's one of my arguments is the Yankees didn't do a good job building this team. They did such a bad job that they're taking a guy who's a young kid who never played at AAA, and they're making him the leadoff hitter because they didn't think this through well enough. But
and Doc, he has a good eye, right? He gets on base. He walks a lot. He did hit it. He did make he did drive in a couple runs with a base hit during some time ago. I agree with Jack. I think this is where you throw somebody in the fire and see what he can do. I mean, he's not just bad at first. He's bad at a lot of different positions too. It's just he's found. I think Boone thinks that he can handle it. It's exciting to me right now when you can see, Peraza and you can see Volpe and you can see Torres, all these young players now that are setting up the Yankees' future. To me, is very exciting, and they're all basically the same. They all want to play baseball. They're all having fun. They're getting on base. They're making things happen. To me, it's a really exciting time for the Yankees. As
Yeah, we talked, Doc, you're a Yankee expert. We talked, Mac, myself, Keith Engel, on a past show for a little while about Josh Donaldson and Aaron Hicks's contract, to eat it or not to eat it. You don't want to eat a contract where you owe a guy a lot of money. I mean, Mac had mentioned Jacoby Ellsbury in the past, but I think that was different. I think Ellsbury just couldn't take the field, so eventually they had to move on. But if a guy isn't injured anymore and he's on your team, what do you do? My thing is with Aaron Hicks, you could keep him as a sixth outfielder. Pay him. He's not going to be a distraction. He's not going to be an albatross in the clubhouse. Josh Donaldson's got a big personality. When he comes back, you've got to at least play him half the time, bare minimum. Because if you stick Josh Donaldson on the bench as a part-time or as a defensive replacement, it's going to be a tense situation. So do you move on from Josh Donaldson? He's been injured. We don't know when he's coming back, but he is going to come back at some point. What are you doing with him?
I just read he'll be back in 2 weeks.
2 weeks. What happens if he's not hitting for the first 2 weeks he's back?
Well, I think Doc and me agree on this. I don't think you keep Donaldson after this year as his contract's up, so you just let him go. Hicks is another problem. I think you do cut the losses with Hicks. Hicks can't hit
more than 35,000.
I think you do it. The Yankees,
but you can get use out of Hicks, though. You can get some use out of him.
Aren't the Yankees the richest team in baseball? They can afford to let Hicks go.
No, if that were the case, they would sign players left and right. I don't want to hear the Yankees.
They don't do that because of luxury tax, and I'm not going to get into that with you right now. I'm just saying that Hicks has done nothing for the Yankees in the past couple of years. He's been hurt. His arm is not what it was. He's not fast enough to play center field for sure. He's not fast enough to lead off for sure right now. When you got somebody like Volpe there. I mean, why are you keeping him around, Jack? What is the purpose?
I would keep him around. First and foremost, you owe him a lot of money. And I haven't completely given up on Aaron Hicks. Maybe at times he shows flashes of his old self.
When he drops the ball? When he drops the fly. Wait, how many fly balls has he dropped this year, Jack, in the outfield? I don't know. It's been at least a few. Easy fly balls he's dropped.
He's got a few easy flies this year.
He has.
I know of at least one, I believe. I haven't seen every game, but there was a play when everybody was all over him.
What I'm trying to say, guys, is this. in the clubhouse, is, you want to be relaxed, the manager. You don't want tension. You don't want this. You don't want that. I don't think there's any harm of keeping Aaron Hicks around.
He's
I
complained.
don't think. No, they asked him a question. Everyone's going to say they want to.
You're going to keep around. Wait, you're going to keep a bench player. You're going to keep a bench player for $10 million a year. That's worth.
Oh, but okay, or you just lose the money. You lose the money. Yeah.
So I guess it comes down to this, right? And I think this is what it all comes down to always. And we find ourselves always as sports fans arguing both sides of this point. But what is the mission of the New York Yankees? What's their ultimate goal? If their ultimate goal is to be cost conscious and understand that they need to stay under a luxury cap and that we have these costs and we've invested in these players, and so we're going to keep them on the roster because we're paying money to them to be Yankees, well, then the answer is you keep them on the roster, and you got to keep them there because they're paying them. But if the mission for the Yankees is to win the World Series, then you make moves that are designed to put the best team on the field to accomplish that task. And I think what happens with the Yankees right now is we're at this confluence of fans who were brought up or who lived and matured during the George Steinbrenner eras, where the idea was the mission is to win, regardless of costs. And they'd say, well, George, what do you do with the money that you make on the team? He says, I put it right back in the team. All I want to do is win. Now, did everything Steinbrenner do result to winning? No, that's not the argument. But the argument is, was the mission of the Yankees to win? Yes. And so if a player was not helping that mission, did they get rid of him? Yes. Did they eat big contracts? Yes. And did they then get bigger contracts to bring other guys in because they thought they'd win? Yes. Okay, that's one way to do it. Or the other way to do it is, well, we're paying Josh Donaldson $20-some-odd million, and we're paying Aaron Hicks another $40 million, so they have to be on the team because we're paying them, and they're on the team because we're paying them. You argue both sides against the middle, right?
Doc's point, Mac, too, reminds me of what hypocrites Mets fans are. The biggest hypocrites. Case in point, Steve Cohen is spending the same way George Steinbrenner did. No different. Maybe he's even being more aggressive than George was. And it's fine with Met fans. They're ecstatic, and I'll credit the Yankee fans and the Yankee organization. No one's complaining about what the Mets are doing with the Yankee fans. Oh, they're spending all this money. It's not fair. Good for them, the Met fans. They got an owner who's spending. But when George Steinbrenner did it, all you'd hear the Met fans would be whining the whole time. They're buying the World Series. They're trying to buy victories. Of course they're trying to do that. You make the best players, make the best investments. The Mets are going crazy spending their money. Good for them. I mean, is it going to work out? We see that 2-year deal with Justin Verlander hasn't been working out. Max Scherzer could opt out at the end of this year. If not, they want to pay him. Whatever. But, it's good to have an owner that's going to spend, but you got to kind of spend wisely. But what gets me mad about the Aaron Hicks thing, I don't want to hear, the pressures of playing in New York. It's got nothing to do with playing in New York. He earned his contract by playing in New York.
100%.
So don't tell me, Sonny Gray is the poster boy supposedly for the pressures in New York, but he's been successful elsewhere. Yeah. Sometimes it's got nothing to do with the pressures of being in New York. Most of the time, I think it has nothing to do with it. You just hit a patch in your career. You're not as good. If Garrett Cole was going to pitch well, was it going to be because of the pressures of playing in New York? I mean, come on. I don't go for that, especially social media and all. I know it was that way with Ed Whitson a lot of years ago, so we hear the term pressures of playing in New York.
I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, there are pressures, no doubt about it. Speaking of pressures of playing in New York and baseball teams and big contracts, the Mets have a polar bear at first base, Pete Alonso, who is a big-time home run hitter. this is sounding similar to the Yankees and Aaron Judge, big-time home run hitter, homegrown star, set a rookie home run record, right-handed slugger, New York City, and a contract. And it's I guess Alonso's contract ends at the end of this year, Jack, or next year, this year. And do they Mets and the Mets haven't offered him a new contract, or he hasn't signed a new contract? Are the Mets making the same mistake that the Yankees supposedly? I don't think the Yankees made a mistake, by the way, but is he making the same mistake that the Yankees supposedly made? What do you think?
Yes, but Pete Alonso isn't as big as Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge is the heir apparent, from Ruth, Garrett, DiMaggio, Mantle, Mattingly, Jeter to Judge. He grabbed the baton. He's one of them. Judge is already an iconic Yankee. He entered that territory. So when you have an iconic Yankee like that, it's more than what he just produces on the field per se. The last 4 years of Mickey Mantle's career, he was dreadful, but he was so big and iconic and important, to be a part of the Yankees. Alonso could enter that territory for the Mets. I mean, he's not as iconic as Keith Hernandez was for the Mets as of yet, but he'll be there soon. A couple of more years like this. Pete Alonso is going to be such a phenomenal Met favorite. What's Steve Cohen doing? I guess Steve Cohen maybe thinks my pockets are so big. I'm not worrying. I'm going to get it done at the end of the year. I'm going to match what anyone does. I'll pay him more. I think he wants to be a Met. If I offer more money than anyone else on the free agent market, he's going to stay with me. I think they're being a little too complacent. Get the darn deal done. Maybe the Mets are wanting to put pressure on Alonso. Maybe they're not convinced that he's that great a player. That could be it. They want to see him do it one more year, and he's been doing it this year. He leads the majors and homers. He's been producing. I don't get it. What are they waiting for? Treat him like he's a free agent now. Get it done, because once you leave the door open, anything could happen. Look at Freddie Freeman, a dozen years with the Atlanta Braves, coming off a World Series victory year. And one of the more iconic Brave players of all time, Freddie Freeman. Everyone loves him. He loved being a Brave. Yet something went wrong, and he wound up going elsewhere. Derek Jeter conceivably could have gone elsewhere. The contract negotiations become such at a point where anything became possible for a little while. I say get the darn deal done. I think this is a mistake on Steve Cohen's part, unless Steve Cohen thinks I don't give a darn. Like I just said, my pockets are so deep. I'm not worrying. Money will talk at the end. I'm going to outbid everyone. And, if that's his attitude, more power to him. But I don't think they're handling this too smartly, the Mets.
Yeah. What do you think, Mac?
I don't know. I mean, yeah, Stephen Cohen's rich, and yeah, Alonso has been playing well, still a young player. I hope they don't sign him. Maybe the Yankees can get Pete Alonso. He'd be nice at first place, wouldn't he? I mean, Anthony Rizzo's got what? Anthony Rizzo is a good player.
Anthony Rizzo's got one more year after. Anthony Rizzo signed a 3-year deal with the Yankees. I'm sorry to cut him back. I just want to let you know the Anthony Rizzo deal, 3-year deal. The Yankees can opt out after the second year, and they give him like $4 million. So he would have made $40 million for 2 years if the Yankees opt out of the third year. Otherwise, it's $54 million for 3 years. The Yankees hold the opt out in the Rizzo thing.
Right. It'd be nice seeing him in the Yankee uniform. I think he'd be quite a great addition to the Yankees, but that's not going to happen. The Mets are going to sign him. Whether they offer him a contract or not, honestly, I don't care whether Pete Alonso plays with the Mets or not. He could go wherever he wants. He's not with the Yankees. I really don't care. But yeah, of course, Steve Cohen is going to get it done. He knows he's a big attraction. He knows he's a big power hitter. The Mets need him in their lineup, and one way or another, Cohen will get it done.
Mac, but if I said to you, Anthony Rizzo is one of the best first basemen in baseball. I don't have all the first basemen in front of me. I'd have to look at each team's roster. But I would imagine off the top of my head, if I said right now, he's one of the top 5, I repeat, 5 first basemen in all of baseball, I think it would be hard to argue against it. The guy has a great glove, and he's hitting. Would you argue that, Doc? You shook your head.
I listen. I'm a big Anthony Rizzo fan. He's not a top 5 first baseman in all of baseball.
But the way he swings a great bat, puts up the numbers. Defensively, he's outstanding.
What he hit 220 last year?
Oh, but he has an on-base percentage, lots of big hits, power numbers.
Yeah, 30 home runs. He had 30 home runs. I mean, I don't have his numbers right in front of me, but Anthony Rizzo is a very good player. Anthony Rizzo is 32 years old, 33 years old. He's on the decline.
Right now, I'm not talking about future, age.
Right. But like Alonso is probably better. He's a better power hitter, no doubt. Alonso's like a 40, 45 home run guy.
He got a good glove. Got a good glove too. He's got a good
Freddie
glove.
Freeman.
Pass it. Freddie Freeman is better.
Matt Olson.
Who?
Matt Olson. Right? Isn't that the guy the Braves got? Right?
I'm going to tell you something. Matt Olson is younger, has more of a future than Rizzo. Yeah, on that account, I take it. But right now, I'm not going to say that Matt Olson is necessarily better than Anthony Rizzo. They're similar now. They're about the same. That would be
You're going to make me look this up now.
You look your on-base percentage. Can you look up fielding percentage?
Anthony Rizzo is a very good fielding first baseman.
But that counts for like, why do people always, and you tell me this, Mac, because you've been following baseball a long, long time, as has Doc, obviously, too. Why do people diminish the importance defensively of a first baseman? You feel you could just stuff anyone there. Like third base is all this important, but first base isn't. First base is the hot corner, too. You just don't have to make the long throw to first base. But you defensively.
Listen, I agree, Jack. It's tougher than any other position to turn a double play into. I mean, unless you're left-handed. But if you're right-handed, it's hard to turn a double play from first to second back to first.
First to second, and then you got to get back to first if possible.
Right. First base is a tough position to play. It's very, very underrated with baseball fans. Very underrated.
Yeah, Matt Olson is very good. The Braves, after they lost Freddie Freeman, they signed him to like a 7-year deal, $21 million a year. They made a big investment.
And that wasn't the Braves or Freeman's fault either. That was his agent. I mean, that was his agent screwed that up, Jack.
It was that's a shame, that miscommunication, to happen. But look, he's with the Dodgers, so he found a nice landing spot there. But like you look at Anthony, Guerrero. Okay, I put him ahead of Anthony Rizzo. Guerrero's a dynamic.
All right, I'm just looking at a million different sites. None of them have Rizzo as a top. Here's like NBC Sports. Paul Goldschmidt 1, Freddie Freeman 2, Pete Alonso 3, Vlad Guerrero 4, Matt Olson 5, Jose Abreu 6, Nathaniel Lowe 7th, Bryce Hopkins 8th, Ty France 9th, Christian Walker 10th.
No, that's wrong. He's better than Rice Hoskins is out the year. He's better than him. Abreu isn't. I don't think he's better than Anthony Rizzo. People forget when Rizzo was with the Cubs, he was considered one of the best first basemen in baseball.
That's correct. That was a long time ago.
No. But he went to the Yankees. Has his performance slipped as a New York Yankee from the time he came to the Yankees from the Cubs? When you look at it.
Here's Bleacher Report. Ready? Top 10 first baseman. Rizzo 10, Ty France 9, Christian Walker 8, Nathaniel Lowe 7, Jose Abreu 6, Matt Olson 5, Pete Alonso 4, Vlad Guerrero 3, Paul Goldschmidt 2, Freddie Freeman 1. So maybe he's a top 10 first baseman.
But I think the few guys ahead of him in the lower part of the top 10, you could put Rizzo ahead of those guys. So when I said top 5. Okay, I mean, if you want to put him 6th, 7th, maybe 8th, okay, I can be okay with that. Yeah, Alonso has the ability to be a superstar, so I see a point. But look, what does Rizzo mean in the clubhouse? He's the leader of that team. Think of it. No. Think of it. Right? The identity. Does that
Jack
count?
is all stuff. He's a sales. He should be Rizzo's agent. You should be Rizzo's agent, Jack.
Think of it. Sometimes a certain guy's a leader of a team. Listen, when Jeter was a Yankee, we heard all this, the captain. CC Sabathia was more of a leader in the clubhouse than Jeter. Jeter was kind of like a symbol. Yeah, he talked to players, but Jeter wasn't a leader that anyone would be really deferring to. They admired him a great deal, guys coming up. But CC Sabathia would be the real guy, the real presence in that clubhouse. Like now,
I think Jorge Posada was the leader of that clubhouse, Jack. I really do. I think that was the guy that of the four, I think he was the leader of the team. I really do.
Well, I'm not even talking core four, but even now, Judge is liked a great deal. He's popular in the clubhouse. He tries to act like a captain. Don't get me wrong by talking to guys. He's a great guy, Aaron Judge. Everyone loves him. But Anthony Rizzo is the one single guy with the most leadership. They have veteran, and even Judge defers to him. Judge loves Anthony Rizzo.
I don't remember where the debate went, but I don't think anybody's denying any of that. The question is he a top 5 first baseman? I don't think he is. And I like him.
Top 5, I said that off the top of my head. No preparation. You threw names at me.
I'm throwing names that the supposed experts are saying.
No. Anthony Rizzo's a top 10. I would place Pete Alonso ahead of him because of Alonso is such a force. I would put him ahead of Anthony Rizzo, but sometimes there's no need to make a replacement if you're very strong at a position.
No, I don't disagree with that. And look, here's the bottom line about Anthony Rizzo. Again, talking about the way the Yankees constructed this team. I wouldn't necessarily swap out Anthony Rizzo for Pete Alonso right now because Anthony Rizzo is the only guy on the Yankees who hits left-handed.
Yeah. I agree.
Well, you were right, Doc. And when I know I tease you guys about the Judge thing, but you were right on the Bryce Harper thing. Revisionist thinking. The Yankees should have signed, Bryce Harper, made it work, because Bryce Harper certainly showed a willingness, maybe more than a willingness, to want to be a New York Yankee. And I just didn't like the idea of dealing with Scott Boras. Scott Boras is the one guy I wouldn't want to deal with, because in a way he would be using the Yankees to just drive up the price. And the Yankees didn't want to get involved. And, I don't like getting
But again, it goes
involved.
to that question I brought up before. What's the goal? Is the goal to win the World Series? Does Bryce Harper make you appreciably better to win the World Series? He absolutely does.
Well,
Anyway.
That's why even with the Ohtani thing, when he becomes a free agent, I mean, if the Yankees could have signed Ohtani early, if I were the Angels, I would have traded Ohtani to the Yankees when I had a chance where I could have gotten an Anthony.
He didn't want to play there. It's up to him too, Jackie. He didn't want to play for the Yankees. It's up to him.
But once I think the Angels could have traded him. I don't know whether he has a no trade. I don't think he has a no trade clause in there.
I don't know. I wouldn't want somebody playing that doesn't want to play there. I wouldn't want him on the team.
No, obviously not. But it'll be interesting when Ohtani has his views changed about playing in New York. And if he's going to play in New York, Steve Cohen will offer him ridiculous money, like $62 million a year.
I don't see the Yankees doing that either.
I
don't see the Yankees breaking the bank for him.
Not at that amount.
All right, you know what? We did it. 2 hours of great sports talk. We missed Pags this week, but it was a great 2 hours of great sports talk. Mac and Jack will be here tomorrow for the Sunday show. I'll see you again Monday night at 9 p.m. with the Start Spread of the News show. Everybody else, have yourselves a happy, wonderful, great, and terrific Saturday. Go out and do something outside if the weather allows you to, and then go watch some sports. Have a great day.
Take care, people.